There are moments in history when the destiny of nations rests not only on the battlefield, but also in the quiet rooms where decisions are made. The story of the FB-22 is one such moment. Born from ambition, innovation, and necessity, it was envisioned as a weapon that could reshape the balance of power in the skies. Yet its fate was sealed not by enemy fire, but by the pen strokes of those who determined it would never see the light of day. This is not just the story of a canceled aircraft. It is the story of a dream cut short, of courage weighed against cost, and of a vision that promised dominance, yet fell victim to the realities of strategy and politics. The FB-22 began as an idea rooted in the extraordinary. The F-22 Raptor was already a marvel of modern engineering, the most advanced air superiority fighter the world had ever seen. With stealth capabilities that rendered it nearly invisible to radar, unmatched maneuverability, and avionics that placed it decades ahead of its peers, the Raptor was America's shield in the skies. But as wars evolved and battlefields shifted, military leaders asked a new question. Could this fighter, this hunter of the skies, be reborn as something greater, a bomber capable of delivering destruction deep behind enemy lines, undetected and unstoppable? Thus, the FB-22 was conceived. Imagine a machine that combined the stealth and speed of the Raptor with the long-range striking power of a bomber. A weapon that could take off from bases far away, slip past the most advanced air defenses, and deliver precision strikes at the heart of an adversary's power. For the Air Force, it promised not just dominance, but near invincibility. And for a time, that dream seemed possible. Engineers sketched designs, defense contractors began discussions, and the idea took shape. The FB-22 would have larger wings for increased range, an expanded payload capacity, and the ability to carry both conventional and advanced precision-guided munitions. It was to be a machine of awe, a symbol of American resolve. But dreams often collide with reality, and the FB-22 was no exception. To understand why it never left the drawing board, one must understand the world it was born into. The early 2000s were years of war, but not wars against great powers. The United States was embroiled in counterterrorism campaigns in Afghanistan and Iraq. These were conflicts fought not against rival superpowers with advanced air defenses, but against insurgents and militants who had no air force at all. The FB-22, with all its power, was a solution to a problem that did not exist on those battlefields. Why build a weapon to penetrate air defenses when the enemies of the time had none? Cost, too, was a silent adversary. The F-22 itself had already become one of the most expensive fighter programs in history. Each aircraft carried a price tag that soared into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Expanding that design into a bomber variant would have meant billions more in development, testing, and procurement. Lawmakers, weary of ballooning defense budgets, began to ask hard questions. Was the FB-22 truly essential? Could those resources not be better spent on programs aligned with the wars America was actually fighting? In the halls of Congress, the answer was clear. The cost was too great and the need too uncertain. There was also another factor, less obvious but just as decisive. The military was already investing in the next generation of bombers. Projects cloaked in secrecy, designed to carry the nation's nuclear deterrent and to strike with devastating power across continents. Programs like the B-2 Spirit already existed, and the seeds of what would later become the B-21 Raider were being sown. In such a landscape, the FB-22 seemed to some as redundant, a duplication of capability at a price the nation could ill afford. Yet to those who believed in it, the cancellation of the FB-22 was more than a budgetary decision. It was a missed opportunity, a moment when vision gave way to pragmatism. They argued that the FB-22 could have filled a unique gap between fighters and heavy bombers. It could have been the bridge between the surgical precision of strike fighters and the overwhelming firepower of strategic bombers. It could have been the weapon that ensured America's dominance in an era when adversaries were beginning to develop sophisticated anti-air systems. The cancellation was not just the end of a project, it was the silencing of an idea. Engineers who had dreamed of pushing the limits of aviation watched their work gather dust. Pilots who had imagined flying a machine that combined speed, stealth, and range were left only with what-ifs. And for the Air Force, the FB-22 became a story told in the past tense, a vision that lived only in concept art and proposals. But the story of the FB-22 does not end with its cancellation, for in its absence lies a lesson about power, strategy, and sacrifice. It teaches us that military might is not just about what is possible, but about what is necessary. It reminds us that even the most advanced ideas must yield to the demands of reality. And it shows us the courage of those who dare to dream, even when their dreams are never realized. When we look back at the FB-22 today, it is tempting to see only the loss, to imagine what might have been had it taken to the skies. But perhaps its true legacy lies in the questions it forces us to ask. What does it mean to balance innovation with practicality? How do we decide which dreams are worth pursuing and which must be set aside? And what does it mean for a nation to choose restraint, even when it possesses the power to pursue more? The FB-22 was canceled not because it lacked brilliance, but because brilliance alone is never enough. Strategy demands more, timing demands more, and history demands choices that often leave scars. In the story of the FB-22, we see a reflection of these truths. We see ambition tempered by reality. We see vision shadowed by cost. And we see the enduring tension between what a nation can do and what it must do. Even now, in an age where new bombers are being built, where rivals are testing the limits of stealth and hypersonics, the story of the FB-22 still echoes. It whispers of a path not taken, of an aircraft that might have changed the face of modern warfare, and of the men and women who believed in it. Though it never flew, the FB-22 remains a chapter in the story of American air power, a chapter defined not by triumph in the skies, but by the weight of decisions made on the ground.
And so, as we close this first part of the story, we remember that history is not only written by victories, it is also written by cancellations, by sacrifices, by dreams unfulfilled. The FB-22 may never have soared, but its story carries lessons that still take flight today. The decision to cancel the FB-22 was not made overnight. It unfolded slowly, through countless meetings, classified briefings, and long debates where every word carried the weight of billions of dollars and the future of America's air dominance. In these rooms, the clash was not between fighter jets, but between visions of the future. On one side stood those who believed the FB-22 was indispensable, a guardian of the skies that could deter any adversary. On the other side were those who saw it as a costly distraction, a weapon designed for wars America was not fighting, and perhaps might never fight. The advocates for the FB-22 argued with passion. They warned that America's rivals were not standing still. Across the oceans, new generations of air defense systems were being built, systems designed specifically to counter stealth aircraft. China was investing heavily in anti-access and area denial capabilities, creating a fortress of defenses meant to keep American aircraft far from its shores. Russia, too, was modernizing, developing surface-to-air missiles that could threaten even the most advanced jets. In such a world, they argued, America could not rely on legacy bombers that were large, slow, and increasingly vulnerable. The FB-22, with its speed, stealth, and precision, could strike where no other bomber dared to go. But the critics had their own case, and it was equally powerful. They pointed to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, where America's air power was already unmatched. In those skies, the United States faced no real aerial threats. Fighters and bombers flew freely, their dominance unchallenged. Why, then, pour billions into an aircraft designed for a fight that did not exist? Instead, they said, resources should go to drones, surveillance systems, and counterinsurgency capabilities, tools that address the wars of the present, not the hypothetical battles of the future. There was also the shadow of politics. Defense budgets are never just about weapons. They are about priorities, about compromises struck in back rooms, about senators and representatives fighting for programs that bring jobs to their districts. The FB-22, for all its promise, struggled to gain allies in this environment. It was a child of visionaries, but it lacked the political support that often determines the survival of military projects. When rivals like the Joint Strike Fighter program, which would become the F-35, were championed as the fighter for the future, the FB-22 seemed less urgent, less essential. In the end, the arguments against the FB-22 carried the day. The program was shelved, its future extinguished not by a lack of brilliance, but by the cold arithmetic of cost, politics, and timing. Yet the echoes of that decision did not fade quietly. Even today, military analysts look back and wonder, did America lose more than it gained by canceling the FB-22? Did the nation trade short-term savings for long-term vulnerability? For the engineers and designers who poured their skill into the FB-22, the cancellation was a heartbreak. They had envisioned a machine that pushed the limits of what was possible. Larger wings would have given it a striking range of over 1,600 miles, double that of the Raptor. An internal weapons bay could have carried smart bombs, long-range missiles, and advanced munitions. It would have been a predator in the skies, capable of crippling an adversary's defenses before they even knew it was there. To see such a vision confined to blueprints and models was a bitter pill, a reminder that genius often bends beneath the weight of budgets. For the pilots, too, it was a moment of loss. The idea of flying the FB-22 stirred something deep, a sense of pride, of being part of a new chapter in air power. Many had already imagined themselves in its cockpit, gliding undetected across hostile skies, delivering strikes that could change the course of war. When the project was cancelled, they were left with what-ifs, with dreams of missions they would never fly. But perhaps the greatest impact of the FB-22's cancellation was on strategy itself. It forced the United States to ask hard questions about the future of warfare. Could the nation rely on existing bombers, even as adversaries advanced? Could stealth alone guarantee survival in the face of rapidly evolving radar systems? And what balance should be struck between preparing for insurgencies of the present and great power conflicts of the future? The answers were not easy, and they shaped the direction of American defense for decades to come. And so, the story of the FB-22 is not simply one of loss. It is a story of choices, choices that reveal the complex balance between vision and reality, between ambition and restraint. It is a story that stirs pride in what could have been, courage in what was attempted, and resolution in the lessons that remain. As we close this chapter, we are left with a haunting image, a jet that never took flight, but still soars in imagination. A machine of steel and fire, reborn only in memory and speculation. And perhaps that is its true power. For the FB-22 may never have thundered across the skies, but in the minds of those who know its story, it will always fly. The story of the FB-22 is not just about an aircraft. It is about the very essence of decision-making in times of uncertainty. It is about the courage to dream, the wisdom to choose, and the burden of sacrifice. And though it was cancelled, its story endures, etched not in contrails across the sky, but in the hearts of those who still ask, what if?